cracking up. Hey guys, Hannah Hembry Bell,
Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, and we are Law Moms Out Loud, and we are here today once again with a very special guest that we are so excited to bring to you, everybody. This is Maddie Brown, and Maddie is going to tell you about herself here in a moment. And all about her credentials. But what Hannah and I will share with you is that both of us work intimately with Maddie. She is all up in our financial business. Maddie is a CPA and does bookkeeping. And we'll also tell you here in a minute, she's also kind of a therapist.
Yeah, a pretty woo-woo in the woo world.
Yeah, see, we've got crystals behind Maddie. This is not your average CPA, everybody. So if that's what you're here for, go
find the door.
Yeah, that's not what this show is going to be. So welcome, Maddie, to Law Moms. And thank you. We know that you are recently recovering from surgery and you are a trooper and you are here today with us to talk all about how we're supposed to feel about money.
Well, and let me interject here because we were laughing, Kate. I think all of us, look, it's Friday. I don't know about y'all, but for me, this week has been like every day I can't quite get my arms around what day is it. I literally had to check my phone no less than 10 times this week to just get my arms around. Is it Tuesday? Mm-hmm. Is it Thursday?
It's been a week.
What is it? And so we were laughing because as we were starting, we're not in the same location as Maddie, obviously. Kate and I are together in Austin. And Kate has these 3 screens, y'all. And it is like a cockpit in here. She had no less than at least literally 17 things open. I'm like, Katie, you got to minimize this. Like there is so much happening.
Okay.
We're cracking up because a new thing, make it small as like the intro's playing. So I definitely like admit coming into this week with that energy of like, trying to drown out some noise. So I'm just going to invite everybody before we start in case I see y'all both shaking your heads. If anybody else is there making it to Friday, like take big breath, let it out. And I often come into these talks where somebody's going to talk about money. And honestly, I feel bored before I start, to be honest.
Or nauseous.
Nauseous.
I'm like, I get this like knot in my stomach, like, oh, we got to talk about money.
Yes. And so feel a little sick. I know for y'all watching, you're not going to feel this way because Kate actually introduced me to Maddie. Maddie and I are very much newer to knowing each other and working together than Kate and Maddie have been. But I was having this other challenging issue, really had nothing to do with money. And Kate's like, oh, you need to talk to Maddie, the CPA. And I'm like, I mean, but if Kate tells me to do something, I'm just a yes. Like, oh, okay. Well, Kate said to do it. So that's how Maddie and I met. And we've talked about money and everything. We've also talked about a lot of other stuff than money. So I know I bring that yes, Maddie helps with the money and knows about those things, but I super appreciate her big perspective on women in particular and how we relate to money and how we relate to finances. And look, there may be some guys watching the show so happy, hey supporters. But I think Maddie, maybe you could talk a little bit about in your own words what you do, and especially in that space of why working with people like me, like Kate, like our friend Hillary, who is a prior guest on the show, sort of your mission and purpose in this space. Could you share with us?
Before you start, Maddie, I also have to give David Nagel and Steph Tuss a shout out. They are how I found Maddie. And I called Steph recently. I was same thing. I was having some needs. They were tangentially related to finances. And Steph was like, you need to talk to Maddie. And boy, was she ever right. Steph Tuss, you give the best recommendations. And then when I was talking to David Nagel about some private coaching I was doing, and I was like, well, I'm working with Maddie. And he's like, oh, good. Thank goodness. Like he was so relieved that I had already found you, Maddie. So if anybody watching is a David Nagel, Steph Tuss person, that's how I found Maddie, which is how Hannah found Maddie. So, okay, turning it over to you, Maddie. Tell us about what you do. Tell us about your sorcery.
Well, your request to explain myself, I find that very entertaining. I passed the CPA exam in 1981, and there were very few women in the profession at that point in time. And there was a little thing called discrimination, which is still here, but we have made strides and improvements. And I worked in public accounting the first time, 10 years. And then I decided that I didn't even want to be a partner in what was a CPA firm because philosophically, I did not agree with the way they did business. And I did not want to work 70, 80 hours a week. I did not want to account for every 6 minutes of my day.
Mhm.
And I didn't want billing to rule my life. I wanted to make an impact on people's lives. And I said literally for 20 years that I wanted my own CPA practice. And then I turned 50 and I got a tattoo and I left my 20-year job at the Iowa Department of Revenue and said, here we go. And I bought a small CPA practice and proceeded to turn it into something that I think is really special. One of my affirmations is that I love what I do and it makes a difference in people's lives. And I know that I have conversations with people that they don't have with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And intimate is a good word to use because if you know somebody's financial reality, we are not what we appear on the outside. None of us.
Right.
And we present a certain type and flow and character, but it isn't always in integrity and aligned with what you believe and what you do.
Mm.
I faked being an accountant for years.
Mm.
And the accounting practice that I have today, there are no men in suits. Sorry, guys. Just saying. I have my clients consist of small business owners that are trying to make and keep more money in their businesses. Most of them are women. My favorite statistic is that there are 12 million women-owned businesses in this country. Out of that 12 million, 88% generate less than $100,000 a year.
Mm.
And less than 2% hit 7 figures.
Mm.
And so one of the things that I see very commonly is someone who's making 6 and 7 figures that are just beating the shit out of themselves. I'm sorry, but they're beating themselves up when they need to be appreciative and be grateful for the success that they have.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's the gap and the gain concept, right, Maddie? Are you familiar with that idea right there? What does that mean in this context, you think? The difference in the gap and the gain?
I don't really look at it from that way. Ask me another question,
Well, I guess
Hannah.
what I mean is when I hear you say that about being grateful and kind to ourselves for what we are accomplishing,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's focused on the gain, what you've been able to gain versus women like me, like Kate, like a lot of people who are fans of the show and our friends and stuff. We get so fixated on the gap between where we are and where we want to be instead of the gain where we've come.
Mm-hmm.
And so I literally this week have said to others when I'm really saying it to myself of be kind to yourself. Give yourself a break. And I don't say that like in an excuse making, but I think we can be so focused on the gap that we're real hard on ourselves, especially in money
Mm-hmm.
issues. So you probably see that, I think, a lot with with business owners and probably women in particular of like, hey, maybe I'm in one of the 2%, but I want to be in the 0.5%. And maybe you see people who are in the top 12%, but I want to be in the 2. We're always focused on that space.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. And it's really, I had a conversation with a client that was so pissed off that she didn't make 6 figures in a month, that she was just beating herself up. And the bottom line is she made $97,000 in 1 month.
Preach.
And you've got to stop. And we all remember a time in our lives when $100 was a lot of money. And then $1,000 becomes a lot of money. And then $10,000 becomes a lot of money. The only difference is the adding of the zeros. Because the mindset that you're talking about is going to be present regardless of how much money you make, unless you make different choices about how you view your money and how you use your money. Okay? It is not going to change because you make 7 figures. That isn't going to fix anything.
You won't have arrived.
No.
Right. Yeah, I heard it said that when you get to that, the top of that mountain, all you realize is there's another mountain. Right? You get to the top and you see that there's another summit to get to. And Kate, you were going to ask something?
Well, this is backtracking a little bit, but this is for you, Hannah, and you too, Maddie. I personally have a visual image about the gap that came into my head when I first launched my law practice. And one of my coaches talked about don't fall into the gap. And in my head, I've visualized myself in a car driving down the highway toward a destination, and like the physical, like launching my body off of the car down into the space in front of my car. Like that's where I visualize whenever I hear don't fall into the gap.
You're going to go out of your car and run over yourself?
Right in front of the car. And so I'm just wondering if y'all have a visual image, if you've created that.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's something to pick apart there.
I know.
Sure.
But we had, I found a quote by Rock Goddess, and I'd never heard of her, but I found this quote, and it says, "You are in the throes of success, believing you are failing." And that I see every day. And I want to see women be happy and excited. And I believe that every small business owner has the potential and the right to have the financial freedom that they want. Financial success is not defined by the number of zeros.
How is it defined?
Success, in my definition, is can I make the decision without opening the browser and looking at my bank account?
I never heard it said like that.
Right. I'm not.
The other thing that is integral that people have to have cemented in their mind is they can do anything that they want to do if they make the decision to do it.
Yeah.
Maddie, on that point right there, I think I'd love for you to talk more about that, because this world, and I've said this on like the mindset world and those kinds of decisions and things, is still relatively new to me. And I mean, it kind of goes without saying, you can do anything you want. People say that all the time. But if you really like sit for a minute in, you literally can make any decision. And if you make the decision to be financially successful, I love your definition of success, that money doesn't stop or start any of your decisions, right? It's just sort of like the grease of the wheels or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But if you make that decision, it's possible for you. Now, here is something I learned. A friend of mine, actually a lawyer, Taylor Harper down in San Antonio. I'll have to sit, if you're watching, hey bud, told me about this. It's the difference between a wish and a decision. So I always had the perspective of like, I want to have plenty of money. Literally, that is what I want. I'd put, if you made me make a list of life goals, have plenty of money. Well, that's in the lines of a wish, right? There's nothing specific. There's no decision. It's like I hope that'll work out. Won't that be nice if it happens to me?
It's magical thinking.
Right. Versus Taylor said, no, but you haven't decided. It is going to happen. So do you have any more thoughts on what that means to go from magical wish thinking to decision thinking?
You know, I want people to have a really clear vision of how they want their life to look and what they want their life to be like. And if they can convey that and describe that, then they can create it. And what's right for one person is not the same thing as what's right for another person. You can't, everybody's different. And I like, instead of saying, I want to make more money, you want to say, I want to be able to go to Italy for a month in July next year.
Yeah.
And that's going to cost me $8,000, $10,000, $20,000. However, I would go to Italy. And then you go, the how is not your job. You don't have to figure out the how. You don't have to say how to do things. What you need to do is make a decision that you want something in your life. And when you make the decision, you will watch the universe shift and change to comply with your chosen images. If you decide to buy a green car, you will suddenly see green cars all over the place.
I want a green car.
And you don't see a lot of green cars, but when you bring it into your consciousness, they show up and you start seeing them all the time. And many years ago, I had a mentor that said to me that it's almost like stagehands behind the stage. They're going to shift the curtains. They're going to move the props. They're going to move everything around so that the stage is set the way you want it set. And so if you envision that you have an army of stagehands orchestrating what you want, and there is nothing more important in this world than what you want. What's difficult is being honest about what we want.
That's what I'm just dying to say, and I'm trying not to be interrupty, but I'm dying to say, how do you figure out what you want?
Well, and I want to add a layer of complication to that, because all of us carry generational beliefs, limiting beliefs about money, about what we should be doing, what we're supposed to be doing, the way our grandparents raised our parents who raised us. And then we've got this all of this to shed. And then most of us partner up with somebody, and then we got to work all that out,
all their stuff.
And then we don't necessarily want the same thing they do. And it's like, God, it's so tangly. I mean, like, it's hard to figure out if it's just you.
Mm-hmm.
How do people do this part, the figuring out what you want, and then reconciling that with your partner and then doing all your work in a healthy way.
Yes. Please. Oh, wise one.
Oh my God.
She's like, I need a drink of her water. Get the water. Everybody water up. It's time.
Okay, yeah.
Here, we bell water.
Relationships. Your relationship with money is exactly like your relationship with your spouse.
Oh.
If you depend upon your spouse for money, then you're going to be a dependent person. You look in the mirror. If you master your own self, which is really the only place you have an opportunity to have control anyway, because you can't control another person, you have to make decisions that support where you want to be. And how you decide that evolves. It doesn't start out as necessarily the same thing. I spent a period of about 15 years of my life where I raised and showed Cocker Spaniels. And I was competitive on a national basis. And it was a chapter in my life. And I learned from that chapter a lot of really good lessons and things that I'll carry with me into subsequent chapters. And so what's interesting is when you're in alignment and your money is in alignment, everything flows smoothly. Okay? If you're not in alignment, then there's going to be bump and grind and stress. And you best look in the mirror and get a good handle on the person in the mirror before you think about anybody else. Because the reality is, you can walk into Chico's clothing store and you can buy anything you want to buy. Like, if you think about it, there's nothing that you couldn't buy in that store.
Right.
That's freedom. You have that same freedom with your money. You have that same freedom with your business. There's nothing you can't do, but you've got to be willing to do the work. And if you're not willing to do the work, you're going to struggle.
But Maddie, you said there's stagehands. So how does that work with the stagehand idea and the bust your honey idea?
Okay, let me see, how do I want to say this? You have to have a recipe card. When you go in a restaurant, you order a meal. I want my steak medium rare. My husband wants his well done. No one cares but us, and we don't ask for the things that we really want at the simplest level. And so if you develop the ability to make decisions at a very granular level, every decision you make takes you further or closer to your goals. Okay? And so you've got to have a clear picture of what you want and what you want it to look like. And then you will see things begin to shift, and you will get signs. I call them breadcrumbs. Okay? You'll get a breadcrumb that says, yep, you're on the right path. You found that piece. Okay. Now let's go on to the next phase. And over the course of a period of time, you see how it all builds together. And you couldn't be who you are today if you weren't who you were 10 years ago. And I've got more looking back that I can do, but I don't regret very many things that I've done. The things that I regret are the things that I haven't done, and the things that I've said no to. Mostly mostly it when you prove to yourself through repetition that you can have anything the way you exactly want it to be, you come to a point where you make all your decisions from the standpoint of, I can do this or I could do this. Which do I want to do? And I have to decide really what I want to do. One of my employees wants to have a baby, doesn't want to have a baby, wants to have a baby, doesn't want to have a baby. She's got to make a decision. And that decision is going to impact the rest of her life.
That's a pretty big one.
Yeah. Well, and I think Maddie, when people say this sort of thing, not as good as you, but they say things like, you can have anything you want. For me, this has always been very hard because figuring out, some people just, they always knew they wanted to be a firefighter, or they always knew they want XYZ. And I think especially as women and as we go through a mom experience, what do I want is not a question that we ask a lot. It's sort of like, what do my kids want? What does my spouse want? Mm-hmm. What does everybody else want from me? So I am always on the hunt. I've probably already asked this. I will ask every person who I think knows things and ask them what advice they have to get into that question. Because if you literally put me on the spot right now and said, Hannah, list everything that you want, I would get pretty shifty, uncomfortable pretty fast, which I don't normally do, to answer that question. So do you have any thoughts or things that you have your clients do to sort of step back? Because yes, accomplishing it, I know we need to talk more like specifically about money too, but like that precursor question, how do you figure out what you really want? Do you know the answer?
I have an answer.
Okay.
Because the reality is, you know what you want. And saying I don't know gives away your power. Because you do know. If someone asks you if you want scrambled eggs or an omelet, you can answer that question, right?
Yes. Omelet, duh.
Okay. Scrambled eggs, that works for me.
I don't know.
But only you can make that decision, and you're the only one it matters to. So once you start being aware of the impact that your decision makes on your external life, you'll see a pattern of consistently getting what you want, because you'll always ask for what you want. You want an omelet. Doesn't everyone? I want a Diet Coke. Doesn't everyone? No. So if you can understand at that very granular level that everything is a puzzle that works its way together, and you are making decisions based on preference, you just don't realize you're making decisions based on preference. And when you become aware of your preferences and choose them, then you really get clear that it's all your choice. You have complete responsibility for everything in your life, both good and bad. And stuff happens to. I'm a big fan of Jack Canfield, and I'm certified in his training. And at our graduation event week that we each had a few minutes to talk about a specific rule or strategy. And the strategy that I was to talk about was events plus your response creates the outcome. Mm-hmm. You can do all kinds of different things, based on what your response is. And at that point in my 5 minutes, the fire alarm went off. And they had to evacuate the building. And we all stood around outside and talked and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Then they decided it's all clear, we'll go back in. And I am supposed to get on stage and say, well, the fire alarm went off. Does that change what I need to say to you? No, it doesn't. Because how we respond to the fire alarm is what makes the outcome. And we always have choices regarding the response that you make. And the more you recognize that you're choosing it, the more powerful you become.
I actually think that is one of the most freeing philosophies, when you start accepting, like truly, like you just put it on in your body and that you are responsible for everything, your reaction to everything. Like it's scary, I think, until you get to the point where you really accept it. And then it is like so freeing. That's been my experience with it. And I want to ask you about something, Maddie, about sort of this idea of the universe provides. Like we put out there what we want in the universe if we can figure it out. And then our stagehands help us get there. And I also want to acknowledge that a lot of our followers are not business owners. So there's something different when you own a business, that if you have a goal, you can design the business to help you get to your goal. But a lot of people are, on a fixed income. And like I said, there's all of these beliefs around money and what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. And so what do you say to the people, Maddie, who have a set specific income and they know they want stuff and that stuff isn't provided for in their income? What are the ways that people respond? And
Number one, this is not going to be a popular statement. If there is someone that says to me that they can't find a job, I don't believe them for 5 seconds. Because everywhere you go, they've got hiring signs out. Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
What it means is that person chooses not to flip hamburgers at McDonald's. Because you could make $18 an hour flipping hamburgers at McDonald's. You choose not to do that. It's not that you can't do that. It's that you won't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the power is in acknowledging the choice.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you've proven it to yourself over and over and over again, then the question falls back to, what do I really want? And what I really want is generally to be here and help people make a difference in their lives. That's what I want. Mm-hmm. And if I do that by talking to one of you for an hour, if I do that by talking to another customer for an hour, half an hour, sometimes 5 minutes. But you've got to, the past is in the past, and you can learn from what happened in the past. And you can plan for the future and know what your plan is, where you want to go. But the reality is you have to live in this moment right now.
Mm-hmm.
So Hannah, in this moment right now, you are choosing to do this radio show.
Right.
And you are choosing to do it with Kate.
Yes.
And you are choosing to be friends.
Mm-hmm.
And you are choosing to be a support system. And you created all of that.
Right.
So don't tell me that you don't know what you want.
Well, it's a good point, because I laugh and tell this story on me and Kate all the time. I think it's worth sharing here, Maddie, for a second, because yes, I was looking for areas where I've proven to myself that I can know what I want. It feels less, for me, I think partially it's less intellectual and more intuitive. So I may think I don't know what I want, but somehow I start doing and acting things before I even know what I'm doing. So for instance, I'd known Kate through our local moms group, Mamas. And it's a bunch of lawyer moms here local in Austin. And I'd known of Kate. She's everyone's darling and everyone's favorite immigration lawyer, and wonderful and snazzy and has sparkles. So, and always wears yellow. So I had thought to myself, oh, I really think I could like to be friends with her at some point, because I moved to Austin in 2018, then pretty quickly got married. Then it was the pandemic. So I was real kind of getting used to getting my feet under me in town. And I thought, oh, I really think I would like to be friends with her. And at one point she was doing those Vecino, which we talked about last week, things. And was maybe going to go and I thought, well, maybe I'll try to do that. Really, yes, I want to help people, but I thought, oh, I can kind of be friends with Kate. It didn't pan out. And then I had my daughter, Penelope, about a year ago. And Kate had posted on the moms group about, hey, who wants to do a Peloton challenge thing? And I had gotten a Peloton that had been collecting dust, because I got it for my birthday right before I knew I was pregnant, and then had it. And then I wasn't about to be pregnant riding on that thing. And so anyway, Kate had said this, I am on maternity leave from work, had my 4th C-section with babies. And I'm like, something in me knew this is it. Me, I'll do your challenge, me. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. But I was like, I want to be friends with Kate and that group of people. This is my chance to kind of, intellectually, I wasn't thinking this, but something in my heart knew that. And so literally the challenge started the day, 8 weeks to the day that I went back to the doctor and got cleared for exercise. And you had to do, like, if you're a Peloton person, you know that, what's that thing called at the beginning? The ride?
Oh, the FTP test.
The FTP test, which is like I didn't know this, was the day. So here I am, 8 weeks post-surgery. I'm not a workout fiend.
I thought she was like a fitness fanatic. I was like, wow, this chick is hardcore.
Yeah, and I'm not. Something in me knew. And then, look at us. Here we are. We're inseparable, like everything. But something in me knew. And I really appreciate you bringing that up, because something in me knew it was important to take these actions. I didn't even really intellectually know what I wanted, but I somehow knew I need to be friends with Kate. Mm-hmm. And then the universe hands, like whatever, went to work, I guess. And then maybe the part I did was be willing to say yes when I saw an opportunity, right? I did. It's like, oh yes, that's going to work out. So I don't know. Maybe that's one example of how it played out.
Well, that is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Because there are actions that we take that are either inspired or they are process actions. If you want to be a lawyer, you have to go to law school. That's a process.
Okay.
Okay. And if you want to be happy and be a lawyer, you may make different choices than other lawyers make. Mm-hmm. And I say that as a CPA that has an office full of crystals, and it is you made that happen. And when you acknowledge that you made that happen and you accept I made that happen, it will free you.
Yeah, I mean, it's humbling, right? Because then there's been a few times, I mean, I'm just talking about myself, I mean, whatever. I guess it's our show.
That helps everybody.
In my life where this is hard, has been hard for me, because people always say, oh, you can do anything you want, Hannah. And I was good at school and things. But I always just felt like, well, I don't know what that is. But there's been a few times where I got somehow sure from within. It's never intellectual. I never like decided I want, but I sort of felt my way into wanting something. And if I really made up my mind, it has occurred. So maybe that's what you're talking about. And maybe it's just like for people acknowledging maybe we don't come to what we want the same way.
Totally.
Like my brain, I've talked about this before. I don't have words inside of my brain. So like other people talk about, they have this inner dialogue where their self is talking to their self. I don't have words in my head. The words I'm talking, that's how I'm thinking, and I feel, and I have senses and pictures. I don't have words in there. So like if you ask me what I want, I have to talk about it to figure out what it is. Like nothing in me says answers
That's
to that.
okay.
You know?
But you're judging yourself.
Yeah, I'm a little judgy to me.
This is so fascinating, because my experience of you, like I'm a decisive person and I know what I want, but I'm very analytical and like thinky. I'm very thinky about what I want. And I was telling Hannah the other day, Maddie, I was like, I feel like we're two little baby birds in a nest, and Hannah's like constantly just like pushing me out of the nest, like, and coming with me, like she's jumping with me, but like,
come on, Katie, whee! That's what
like my experience of you, to hear you say that you think you don't know what you want is like shocking.
Isn't that funny?
And I'm sure all the people who know Hannah watching the show, they're like, what?
Well, I know I make decisions. It's easy for me to decide.
Yeah.
But this idea of the, like, I want, you know what it is? I know what it is. I just discovered this. Thank you, everyone, for coming to my therapy session. If you say you want something, you're putting yourself out there. Ooh. That maybe you'll fail.
Ooh.
And for me to, I'm getting hot inside. I'm going to cry. Probably what really it is I'm chicken poop. And I'm not willing to verbalize, I'm thinking by talking. Not willing to verbalize, I want this, because then I set myself up for disappointment. Mm. And maybe when I feel my way into a want, I never claimed it to fall short against, right? So it's probably me like both avoiding failure, absolving myself of responsibility, like, oh, I didn't get that certain green. I do want a green car. I have a gray car, whatever. But if I don't say I want it specifically and then it doesn't happen, then I'm not disappointed. I'm not a failure. That's probably what it is. I don't know if anybody else. I do see Paula says, OMG, you don't hear a voice in your head, like you can't hear your thoughts. Y'all, I did not know that this was not how everyone was. Kyle in my office is the one who brought this up. Jen Hargrave, if you're watching, was there, and we had this big conversation. Apparently, there's kind of a couple way people's brains work, like this inner monologue, talk. Like your head says to you, all right, Maddie, let's get up and go eat some cereal.
I don't think I hear words either.
I don't hear any words in my head. I've had like 3 instances where I have heard clear words in my mind. And to me, they were the word of like God, the universe, in this very clear situation.
Let me try an exercise with you.
Okay.
Ooh. Okay.
Show and tell.
I want you to imagine yourself sitting in your car.
Okay. Current car.
It can be an imaginary car. I don't care.
Okay.
Make it your imaginary car. That would be better. Okay, as you're driving along in what kind of car is it? Do you know?
Well, I just put myself in my Toyota Tacoma, so I'm kind of stuck there in my mind now.
Oh, okay. So when you reach over, there's a glove box on the right-hand side on the passenger seat, right?
Yes, ma'am.
If you open the glove box and there's something in the glove box, what is it that you find in the glove box?
Well, a bunch of papers, some what I call mama napkins, some weird manual in like a package.
Do you see them?
Yes.
Or do you physically see the papers?
Yeah, I'm describing a picture in my head.
Okay. That's the same thing as knowing what you want. Because when you know what's in that glove box, it's an imaginary car. You can only, some people might think there's a gun in the glove box. Okay. Some people might find underwear in the glove box.
I have one of those like windshield breaker, shatter, seatbelt slicer.
That's in yours. Okay.
But everybody imagines differently the results, and knowing that you are a kinesthetic person and not a visual person or an audio person, you need to know how you process information and how things look to you.
Whoa. And so then you can better communicate with your stagehands, your universal stagehands.
Yes.
So, okay. So practically speaking, because I was the example on accident, or it's like I took the example spot, as I often do, so if I either feel it's sort of an intuitive thought or a picture in my mind. Mm-hmm. So how does that relate then? So I would just sort of, when I reflect on what do I want, I like sort of wait to see a picture or feel a fill-in. Mm-hmm. Okay. What would you do?
You make the decision. What you got to realize is you're making a decision every second, every minute. You're making a decision. I made a decision to be here today. And I'm here, and I'm going to do what I need to do. And it is, I guess here's what I'm coming to an awareness of myself on my own part, is it's literally moment by moment. You have to live in the present tense. You have to know that I want to go to Alaska someday. And you've got to know that you can look up travel agencies and you can look up hotels and you can research and you can do all kinds of things that are intermediary goals with the overriding goal of going to Alaska sometime in the future. Okay? But every minute of our day, we are constantly giving guidance to the stagehands, and we are telling them what direction we're going. And they'll say, "Oh, gee, okay, I guess we're changing direction. There you go." And that's what my team says when I get on team meeting and I say, "I have an idea."
That you have the best team too.
I have an idea, and they're like, "Oh shit."
Our teams probably should talk to each other. I asked my husband, I said, whenever I say the sentence, "I have an idea," are you scared or excited? And he was like, definitely both.
I bet Josh feels the same.
Yeah.
But so my belief system is that you have a clear vision of destination, what it's going to be like. It's interesting. I wanted my own CPA firm for years. And I said I was going to take early retirement at 55, and I was going to quit my job and start my own CPA firm, which is bad on so many levels, but at any rate. And I came to a greater sense when I turned 50 for some reason. But you literally prove to yourself that it was unlikely that I would have ever quit a government job at 19 years and bought a practice that was not making as much as I made at my state job. And just the power that you're given in any moment to make a decision, and then you trust. And so I go through a process of visualizing what I want and thinking about it and planning for it. And then I set it aside over here, and I go about my day. Okay? The stagehands are working. This is always working. Okay? The stagehands are always working, and things are happening on that in the stagehands. And they will move me closer to my goal as long as I have a clear vision.
But if your visions are not clear, the stagehands are confused, probably. Oh, I'm sorry, stagehands. It's very
Well,
stressful.
you're abusing your stagehands.
And they work so hard.
Yeah.
Indecision is self-abuse.
That's getting written down.
Yeah, write that on the paper. It's on paper. Here's a pen.
When you find yourself standing in the store ordering a coffee, you know how you want that coffee to be. You know what they want to have in it. And what happens if you stand there and say, well, should I do that? Or should I do that? Or should I do that? Nothing happens until you make a decision. And nothing is right or wrong about that decision, but the result that you're going to get will be different based upon the decision.
Yeah,
so
but
you need to have the idea. When I was leaving the government job, I had an interesting thing. I had an affirmation. I love what I do. It makes a difference in people's lives. It was not true in 2009, but that's my mantra. I love what I do. It makes a difference in people's lives. And I had a sense of talking on the phone and laughing and being in communication with people and helping people. And I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like on a granular level, but I could imagine myself sitting, talking on the phone and laughing, and I could feel how I wanted to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And when I could feel how I wanted to feel, every choice you make towards that feeling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love this because the feeling part, that part's really easy for me anyway to conjure up, is the feeling. I don't always have the details. I want to go back to something that you said, Maddie, about indecision is self-abuse. Because I know and love a lot of people very close to me who are slower to make decisions than I am. And it's, I think mostly because of a different speed of processing. Like some people just need to sit with things longer. And so to the people who are watching, who think of themselves as thinkers or ponderers, or they need some time to make a decision, what do you say to those people so that they don't just feel like their way is the wrong way?
What I would say to that is every decision is like a domino. And they are avoiding making the decision because it benefits them in some way. Maybe it makes them feel safe. My mother said to me, "What are you going to do if you don't make it?" And I said, "Well, I'll get a job."
McDonald's, $18 an hour.
You bet. Yeah. So people who do not make decisions do not make progress quickly in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And people who make decisions speed through, and their life appears to magically work.
They're just the number of decisions they make are a lot faster. Well, and Maddie, if it's okay with everybody, I'm going to turn us back just for a little bit for like sort of our focus topic of this that just happens every time we make up a line, we talk about everything else. But a couple things I know that Drew, my husband Drew, had asked. One thing he was thinking about too, he didn't know he had a conflict to be here live, but in talking about money specifically and money for women, do you have any thoughts? Like one thing that he'd mentioned in his experience was a lot of times women, we have a hard time with saving. I mean, there's some people, this is not true for some people, but like that a lot of times like saving money, right? Sort of, we want to give and buy for our kids and have and everything now. And it seems like a lot of times like guys are a little bit better. This is very general, but like, do you have any rules of thumb for us? Women, like, are there any rules of thumb? Like, how much we should be saving, any sort of general guiding money principles that we need to take away that you can share?
Well,
Here, I got something. I got to say this.
I want to hear your thoughts on the gender divide on this, if that matches your experience. But okay, you go, Maddie, you go.
Oh, my brain is not functioning very well. When you get back to the woman that says she can't do something because of money, it's just a lie. It's not true. And you know that to be a fact, because whenever you've needed to make money, you've made the money. And it all has to do with making a decision and being honest about our decisions. So the more aligned you live on a daily basis, the faster you make decisions, the more impact you will have in the world. And I just do not believe the words "I can't" are relevant to anybody. And if they're maybe on a fixed income, I've got a client that can't walk from his vehicle into our office. I don't know how he gets in his vehicle from his house. I don't know how he does that. But he does more with his $500 disability check than a lot of people sitting collecting unemployment. And that's his choice. And there's always a choice.
I think people resist that because if there's always a choice,
you're responsible.
And responsibility is heavy. And I think
fun.
It's
fun.
I mean, I'm with y'all. But I think there's probably, they always say there's like two kinds of people, those who remember birthdays and those who don't. And like two kinds of people, whatever. There are probably truly two kinds of people. Those who love the idea of the responsibility and those who want to make everybody else or everything else responsible.
And you're not a victim. You cannot blame your entire life on someone else. You're not a victim. You're choosing. My mother stayed in an abusive, horrible relationship for 20 years because she didn't believe that she had a choice. And every minute of that time, she had a choice. And so sometimes those choices are hard, and sometimes you have to prioritize.
Yeah.
But she stayed married to my father way longer than she should have. And she made that choice based on what she could do at that point in time. I recommend to every person should be investing in their future in simple ways. One thing that I like is a application called Acorns. And if you can put $10 a week in Acorns, if you can put $20 a week in Acorns, if you can put $100 a month, find a number, start out with a number that you don't even notice, and then double it. And then double it again. And you'll find that you get used to having that money invested, and you get used to having that cushion in your life so that you're not always on the edge. And the saving muscle, it doesn't have to be, I tell people, I don't care if it's 1%. I don't care if it's 0.5%. In my perfect world, I want people to set aside at least 10% for their future. And I want to see 20% set aside for taxes, because you got to pay taxes.
Yes.
But, no choice. And the other 70%, you're going to use for business expenses, and you're going to use for personal expenses. And how you choose to use that is within your power and your choice.
Okay, so if we're going to save for people who, because I know, I was talking to Drew about this morning, because, for him, he's always been a saver. But he also didn't, like me, have kids when she was 23 years old and had a little job making $30,000 a year. My first job was, making $28,000 a year when I had my daughter. Saving, I mean, I needed them. I remember counting in a certain month, like when I was going to get a rebate check from Lowe's for some paint for $50, right? And I was counting on when was that going to come in. So the idea then, saving, was ludicrous to me. And so for so much of my adult life, I didn't develop that habit or that muscle. And it really wasn't until divorced, remarried, lived single mom life for a while, upside down every month, even though I had a good job, my life just cost more. And then only now do I take a chunk and, don't even remember about it. But it's that thing you do first. And it's also a radical act of courage, because what you're saying is this amount of money to invest in future me. I'm doing future me a favor. And right now me is going to be okay. So I think the idea of saving, probably to Drew's point of why do women seem to have a harder time with this, is this radical act of courage and self-love to take this belief that I'm going to be okay. And that this is going to work out, that I don't need that $100 today. Right. I mean, I'm still getting used to it. I'm still getting used to that belief.
But I'm not sure that you're giving yourself enough credit when you talk about everything you have done, going back to law school, getting a degree, passing the bar, opening your own firm, making the kind of money that you want to make. You're back to the gap again.
I sure did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because if you'd have told the 23-year-old self that you would be a 7-figure business in 10 years, what would you have done?
I would have said, ha ha ha, yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's what I would have said.
Okay.
Sure.
So you've got to give yourself credit for everything that you have accomplished.
Oh, thanks.
Well, and even your personal story, I mean, the feminist in me just has to say, I doubt very much that women in general, misogyny aside, struggle to make wise financial decisions like save for themselves in a way different than men do. I don't think that's accurate. I think the history of women has been such that we haven't had the power to earn the money that we deserve forever. And we're even just now entering an era where that's possible.
Yeah.
And so I don't think this is about women struggle to do that. I think this is women are claiming their power in this time.
And how many cents on the dollar do we make?
Oh, 73, I think.
73 cents, right? Yeah. On what the guys do. So we're already starting with 27 cents less.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point.
And it matches your personal story. It's like, so.
Well, so Maddie's money tips, all right? That's like Maddie's money wisdom is save 10% goal. Always pay the IRS. Heard that. I don't mess around with taxes and the IRS. Other things that people can do who want to live in their choices and in their financial power, Maddie. Any other tenets or practical steps that women can take to take care of themselves and their children and stuff?
On my website, smashingnumbers.com, there is a link to a free planning tool. And that is the first step of an online program. And that's where I recommend people start, is with that exercise and getting clear on what they want. And just doing that alone will make a tremendous difference.
Okay.
The second thing I'll tell you is, if you are interested in being a business, then you need a business plan. And you need to have someone to mentor you so that you don't blow yourself up in the landmines.
So true.
Oof.
Because people have experience that can help you move forward faster if you get help.
Preach.
And if you don't get help, you're sabotaging yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell people all the time that having someone to talk to about your money and your vision. I recommend couples. There's a spreadsheet, and I recommend that you each independently fill out the spreadsheet and then come together for a meeting to bring together the joint goals, okay? And then you have a conversation about where you want to invest and what you want to have happen. And then you make your decisions from there.
And can all these people hire you to help them with this project?
Yes.
Highly recommend.
There are lots of different ways that we help people. We've got a freebie on our website. Who doesn't have a freebie on their website? It will get you. It will get you on our mailing list. I do a weekly newsletter. It's about a minute. It's very brief. Doesn't take a lot of time. We do bookkeeping. We do accounting. We do payroll. We do sales tax. We do income tax. And I have a great team of people that handle all of those things so that I get to do exactly what I dreamed of doing in 2009, which was laughing and having a conversation with other women about where they want to be in their lives.
Yes. And Maddie, I just want to thank you. I know Kate and I both, we have certain people in our lives that now, I mean, obviously, because if Kate tells me to do it, I just say yes. So I have all her people in my life now. That you answered the call when the phone of the universe was ringing for you, and that you pursued your purpose, because that enables so many of us to pursue ours. And I think particularly with you, I am so grateful that your purpose has a practical impact, right? Because it's not just motivation. We're not just talking about ideas. We're talking about sending the IRS their money. Thank you. So I know that I'm so appreciative that you've done that, and that through that, the ripple, right? That's like the pebble in the stream of how that flows out. You doing that supports me, helping people protect their kids, their money, and their business. Kate helping immigrants realize the dream and the freedom in that. So I know I'm so grateful. I know I can speak for both of us and everybody. We're so grateful that you were on the show today.
One final question.
Yeah.
Maddie, you never told us what your tattoo was.
Oh, I wanted to know.
It is a Pegasus.
Ooh, I like that.
Very cool. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your comments. Really appreciate. We didn't get as much to be able to be as commenty here. Yes, this is a rewatch. I'm going to rewatch because I have always so much to learn from Maddie.
Fidel's life has changed because of you. I can say that.
Yeah, Fidel, who
Fidel's the law firm administrator at my firm. So.
And hey, guys, so we're going to try to do a better job at the end of each show talking about the next one. And I know I can tell you all, our next guest is my friend and LinkedIn king, Frank Ramos, the Miami mentor, who is a lawyer in Miami, who literally has changed the lives of attorneys all across the country. If you're on LinkedIn at all, you know who Frank Ramos is. And he was supposed to be coming up at our regularly slotted time on June 3rd. However, we're very excited. If everything works out, it's going to be a special extra episode, just what you all wanted. Because Kate and I we find ourselves in Miami by serendipity, I guess, next week where Frank is. So we're going to go see Frank in person. We'll get to see the Rum Bar. Not that we'll have any at 9 or so in the morning, but we can check it out in his office. We'll be coming. So if you have questions for Frank, especially if anybody's watching this on LinkedIn, y'all send me a message or comment on this and I'll make sure we may need to open it. People are going to ask Frank questions. So we're super excited. We'll post details as soon as we nail everything down of exactly what time, probably Thursday next week. And we'll be doing something a little different on the 3rd in Frank's time slot. So with that, thank you, Maddie. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Maddie. We love you guys.
We love you, Maddie. Thanks. Very much fun. Have a great weekend,
Bye,
everybody.